always, always, always be educating yourself, whether
Yeah.
it's listening to podcasts and you can take that and better your business with it, whether it's going to a lecture at KBiz and it's somebody gives you some piece of knowledge that you can take. You just always have to bring something new to the table, something that's going to set you apart from the designer down the street.
Hey, y'all, you're listening to the Designer Within podcast, episode number 56. Welcome to the Designer Within podcast, the podcast where business and creativity come together. I'm your host, John McClain, and I created this podcast for my fellow interior designers, but also for creative and innovative minds alike. I've experienced the challenges and celebrated the victories that come with our careers, and now I'm here to sip and spill the tea with you. There is no sugarcoating here, my friend, just the real deal. We are experts at getting creative for our clients, so let's channel that same energy into our own businesses. It is time to dig deep, reimagine your business, and transform your life from the inside out. It is time to dive into the Designer Within. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Designer Within podcast. I'm your host, John McClain, fellow interior designer and lover of all things design business as well. And I hope you are here to learn today because holy moly guacamole, do we have an episode for you. Jennifer Stoner is on today, and Jennifer is a powerhouse dynamite designer, but also is a powerhouse business owner. And you're going to have so many aha moments in this episode today. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to just ask you, how are you doing? How is the fall going for you? It's almost turkey time. I hear Mariah Carey thawing out already. She's cracking the ice, getting ready to sing that song a million times. But I hope fall has treated you well. It's been great for me. I just returned from a trip to Italy. It was just magical, magical, magical. I can't wait to share everything that I learned during that trip with you guys and all of the aha moments that I had. It started out as a trip with the fabulous stone industry in Italy and a trade show called Marmomac. We got to see so many things at the show, and then we were able to visit a quarry, which was something I had never done before. And I love that whole process because I love behind the scenes of how our industry brings products to life and so forth. So it was wonderful. But then, you know what? Since I'm there, I'm like, John, you're in Italy, so let's go ahead and extend this. So I did. I extended it about 10 more days, and I had this great solo trip. My husband did not go. It was just me. And I was able to, I don't know, something about traveling alone, traveling solo allows you to really delve deep into your own mind and your heart and just really think about things a lot differently. And I did. I did have so many eye-opening moments. And I actually recorded almost all of a podcast episode while I was walking the streets of Florence. Yes. So I can't wait to share that with you once we get it all edited and all ironed out. But it was a great, great trip. I can't say enough good things about it and all the places that I was fortunate enough to go and all that I learned about myself and some great, great places that I visited design-wise as well. My gosh, the inspiration is literally never ending there. So back to today's episode. Today we're talking with my good friend, Jennifer Stoner. As I mentioned, she's a fabulous designer. I love her style. I love her aesthetic, but more so, she's a great, great business owner. She has 24 years in the industry, and you are bound to learn something from someone who has that much experience. And not only that, but she's just so open and giving with her information and her lessons learned and really does want to help other designers. And her background is fascinating, starting as an attorney, moving into interior design. She's had a retail store, and she wasn't doing design when she had the retail store, which is another interesting aspect of it. And on top of her being a totally open book, we also talked about contracts and communication with those contracts and how Jennifer builds trust with her clients. There are so many ways that she does that so, so well. And there's one thing that Jennifer says that is my aha moment in this interview, and I cannot wait for you to hear that. And I want to hear from you if it is your aha moment as well, because this one thing could literally mean the success or failure of your project. And I'm not making exaggerations there. It is truly, truly eye-opening. Jennifer also talks about how she is a continuous learner and the importance of that. We talk about trade shows and how Jennifer likes to network and where that has led her in her career with new opportunities, how she builds client relationships, and how Jennifer really loves in-person connections and what that has done for her business. And last but not least, we talked about concierge services that Jennifer provides for her clients after the project is over and how that helps her clients and how that helps her business and how that brings in new business to her. So this is a note taker. This is a re-listen to this thing twice episode. And Jennifer just speaks in such a pleasant way that you're going to want to listen to everything that we talk about in this episode. I'm probably going to go back and listen to it again myself. Jennifer Stoner is the acclaimed design leader behind her firm, Jennifer Stoner Interiors, headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. Her projects have captured the attention of Traditional Home, Aspire Design and Home, HGTV, Forbes, and many more. A noted tastemaker, Jennifer has been celebrated for her sophisticated, personality-driven style in both fashion and home. As a former attorney with a business degree, her logical approach to design and problem solving are part of her secret sauce that has made her successful. You can also find her speaking at many industry events, educating fellow designers on creating signature business systems and VIP client experiences. All right. So without further ado, sit back, relax, or if you're on the treadmill or taking a walk, keep on walking because this is an episode you're going to want to take all the way to the end. See you on the other side. I have a recap after as well. Jennifer, welcome to the Designer Within podcast.
Hey, John, how are you?
I am great. I'm so happy to see your smiling face on the other end of this. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
It's much more fun when we get to see each other in person, but cross the coast, we'll settle for this.
We sure will. And it's so funny. We just met in person last year, but I can't speak for you. But when I met you, I was like, have I known her forever? Like, this is so strange.
I was at a client's house yesterday, and he and I have got kind of a similar relationship. And I told him about doing this podcast with you today. And I said to him, sometimes you just meet people where you have a better banter than you normally do. And it's like, there's something about our banter. You make me funny.
You're already funny and you're already wild and crazy and smart and intelligent and all the fun things that I love about another friend. So I just love this. Today's literally going to be like talking to a friend who happens to be a very talented designer and business person. So I'm so happy to have you here. And I know that everybody's just going to get so much out of this because you do have a lot to share. And I talk to people a lot with varied backgrounds, right? Like varied backgrounds and what did you do before you were a designer and how did you get into this? And you're actually the first one that I've spoken with or interviewed with your specific background. And I don't want to give too much of that away, but just give everybody an idea of what that background is and then how that found its way into interior design and owning your own business. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it's helped you.
Yeah, that's actually surprising because I've met a surprising number of people with a similar background. And I think that there is actually a weird connection. So for those of you who don't know me, my background was in law. I'm a lawyer and I am old enough that my generation, God, that does sound really old. Anyways, people my age, when I was growing up, interior designers weren't really, I didn't grow up in New York City. I grew up in Michigan and suburbs of Detroit, and interior design was never really a profession that was out there for me. I never really knew about it, even though my grandmother had people who helped her decorate. And I grew up around her furniture, all the old Henry Down and Drexel heritage and her Brunswick and Fee fabrics. And so I knew it. But again, I kind of grew up as hoping to be somebody who could afford that, but never somebody who wanted to be that. So I saw some stupid show that was on, and to this day, I still can't remember what the name of it was, but it was an old show with Stephanie Powers where she was an attorney and her father was always getting in trouble and would always end up in jail. And so she was always having to bail him out of trouble. And so for some reason, decided that I was going to be an attorney like Stephanie Powers. And so my mom would always introduce me to people as, this is my daughter, Jennifer. She's going to be an attorney. Like it's all one word. And I just kind of grew up from the time I was little. I went from wanting to be a lawyer to wanting to be Wonder Woman, to wanting to be a lawyer again, to wanting to be Wonder Woman. It just kind of got stuck there. So I went on through school, went on through college, ended up in law school, practiced law, was doing litigation, ended up in a very large international firm that did medical malpractice defense as one of many practice fields, but one of their biggest clients was Mayo Clinic. So I practiced with the partner who handled all of their litigation, and I ended up going in-house for Mayo Clinic and I did medical malpractice defense for Mayo Clinic in-house as well. So I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And after my daughter was born, it was my second, but after I went back to work after she was born, I was in the middle of a very cantankerous trial with just really awful people involved. And I came home one day and I looked at my husband and I said, I am tired of paying other people to raise our children, because we had a nanny. And I said, I'm tired of paying other people to raise our kids so I can go deal with assholes all day, which life was not short. And I just realized that there were more fun ways to spend my time. So I walked in and I gave my notice and I quit. And so my husband was in IT, still is in IT. He's pretty mobile. We just kind of looked at each other, and we were living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. And people always thought that I was crazy to leave Florida, but it was time to get out of Florida. And so we pulled out a map and said, where do you want to go? And for some strange reason, we picked Virginia. We ended up in Richmond, spent about a year building a house here. And then I kind of, after the house was done, I was like, looking around going, now what do I do? Because God bless stay-at-home moms, because they need an endless amount of patience that I didn't have. So I was looking for something to do. And my cousin came up to visit, and we ended up, she talked me into opening a little furniture store. And so it was a little furniture and decor store. And I have always had kind of a knack for it. I've always loved it. And if I look back when I was growing up, I was drawing house plans. That was like, if I was just scribbling, just doing anything, I was drawing what my future house was going to be. Didn't dream I'd actually design it, but that was just always kind of innate in me. But we opened the store, started having a lot of designers who came and were shopping with me for their clients, and got to know a lot of them, and ended up hiring them to come build a design business in-house. And then I learned from those designers. And that was 24 years ago when all that happened. And I sold the store, the retail off, in about 2007. And went straight to design, because I quickly realized that's where my passion was, and trying to run the retail side of it and the design side, something had to give to get my full percent attention. So yeah, I've been doing strictly design since then.
I love that story so much. And I've never heard all of that. So that's really interesting to me too. But I know it's interesting for people, because what I find, well, two things. First of all, when you built your house in Virginia from Florida, were you involved in that at all? Did you help? Were you like, oh, I would love to do this? Or was it just sort of like a subconscious assistance with the house? Like, oh, I'm just doing this because I want to see this in my new home? Or did you sort of have in the back of your mind, like, maybe I can help with my own home, and this can be a career? No, nothing like that.
Never thought of it as my career. Enjoyed the process. I mean, I built with a builder who had a whole selections team, and you'd go to the different places, you go pick out your stuff. And I enjoyed the process a lot. And even when I started into the design world from the store side, the furniture, the retail side, it was still much more about the decorating piece of it. But now, as I've been doing this now for 24 years, it's actually the building side that I love the most. That's where I get the most excited. It's being on a job site. It's being in a dusty construction zone. It's knowing everything that's going on inside the walls and outside the walls. So it's funny how that's happened. And that house has been 3 houses ago. And so the house that we're in now is an old 70s split level. And we found this house during COVID. And it's really the first time that I've had the chance to really take my construction side of it, my building side of it, and use it in my own home, which is so much fun. We gutted the whole thing, put on an addition. And I mean, this room is a whole glass solarium that used to be where that wall was. There used to be a level that had the swinging 70s hot tub in it. So I'm like, that's got to go. Think about what's in that hot tub.
Just had a thought, if only Stephanie Powers had had an interior design show, you could have just forgotten all of that lawyer stuff and just moved straight into design, right?
Yes, but I'll tell you, the law side of it has helped so much.
Yeah.
And it's so weird when I think back about it, because it does. Most people are like, you went from being a lawyer to a designer. There is really a very strong connection between the two, because I think of projects as puzzles. And there's a lot of logic that goes into designing a home, whether it's from the architectural blueprint stage and you're doing floor planning and space planning. It's like taking boxes and moving them around to fit the right way and function the right way for our clients. But there's also that kind of same logic that goes into the decorating side. How do you put together the different materials and how do the scales work? And there's just this kind of rhythm that flows through design that really flows through law, at least from the litigation side. Because when you had a case that you were working on, it was a big logic puzzle. It was investigating what happened and how things pulled together, and then putting together kind of a logic of how you were going to build your case and present that case to a jury. So there's very similar skills. It's just, and that's why I said I've actually met a lot of former attorneys who've gone into design.
That is very, very fascinating to me, because I would have never made that correlation. But when you explain it like that, it totally makes sense, because it is moving all of those pieces around to get a final result, whatever that final result is, whether it's winning the case and finishing the home and completing it perfectly for the design client. That's really, really
Yeah.
interesting. I want to come back to that whole law background and what that's meant to you, and how that's helped you even more. But tell me, what was the thinking behind starting the retail store first? Because most designers start design and then they say, oh, I need a retail store to help supplement that. So was it just as you were looking for a business? Was it that you knew you liked it and this was a way to get in there? Or what was that thinking? And then tell me more about the good and bad and the uglies of all of that, because it's an entirely different business model to have a retail store in addition to or in place of a design studio, right?
Oh, yeah, completely. And honestly, when we started the store, I had zero intention of going into design. It was not even about that. It was really about having a cute little store and won't this be fun? And we get to go shop for stuff. And it was never about actually going into design. But what I found was that our clients, our customers who were coming into the store, loved how we were merchandising and styling everything. And so they started asking for our help. And that's when I decided to hire designers to come in and build the design business, because they were asking me to come out and help them at their homes. And I was like, well, I don't really do that. I'm happy that you like what I do here, but that's just a whole different thing. So then it just kind of, I don't know, at some point clicked that, wait a minute, I'm actually good at this. So it's all been very unplanned, but it's been a blessing to have happened this way. And I'm glad I did the law school part of it. I'm actually very happy about that. I've got a business degree as my undergrad. So having a business degree and a law degree certainly helps along the way, because let's face it, this is a business. We don't just play at stuff here. We're not just playing with pretty things. And we all know that at least 60 to 70% of your day is on the nitty gritty business side and all the stuff that goes on behind the design.
Preach, sister, preach. Most people don't understand that. And either they understand it, that it needs to be there, and they never follow through with learning it or figuring out what components they need to bring in, or they just don't think about it at all. And then until something horrible happens, and then that's when they need that to be done. But I have a business background as well. That's my degree. And then I can't imagine have a law degree on top of that, because looking back now, I can think of a million and one places where having knowledge of law would have really helped the business to go in different directions and just to avoid certain situations. Something that comes to mind for me instantly is really just sort of getting your agreement, your contract set up, right? That is a crucial part of any design project. And I don't know if I've ever told you my horror story, but when I had my first client, I had no written agreement whatsoever. There was just a handshake, a smile, and a trust, and that turned out horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. It was the worst situation I've ever had. And I don't want anybody else to have that. And you don't, of course, have to have a law degree to develop a substantial contract, but I can only imagine what you went into when you were first working with clients and setting up your business. Did you start from that legal perspective? And did you have to tamp down the design side of it because the legal was coming into play because that was so fresh on your mind? Or how did you intermingle the design with the legal? And then what were those first steps that you did to start your business and to make sure everything was solid and that you were going to work a certain way with that legal understanding?
Yeah, and everybody assumes that the legal background was what helped me the most on, or in that the contract side of it. That's where my legal background helped the most. But honestly, I didn't do contract law. I knew enough of contract law from school and from reviewing stuff through cases, but it wasn't something I was doing every day. So I knew some things that I would have to have in there, but I really went about it the way most of the designers are going about it. Either you're hiring an attorney to actually write it up for you. And let's face it, there aren't a lot of attorneys locally who are writing design contracts and really understands the ins and out of it. Or you were going to your network and finding where you could either buy a sample contract and then tweak it to be your own. And so I think, when I really first started, I took the ASID contract and reviewed that, and you pick and choose what you want and you tweak some language here and there. And it's just evolved. And to say that I've had one contract over the years is far from true, because that contract is a living document. It changes just about for almost every project. I'm looking at it going, well, this isn't quite, every project's just a little different. So there are certainly some clauses in there that I think a lot of designers forget and don't protect themselves with. And that's probably stuff that I've learned along the way, probably more from mistakes and experience. Every time something goes a little awry in a project, you're going to cover it the next time in the contract.
Always, always. You're right.
Yeah.
It is literally a living and breathing document where I suggest everyone look at it after every project to say, okay, what went well with this? Not only look at your processes, but definitely look at your agreement to say, like, okay, well, did this protect me here? Did this protect the client there? And it should be a two-way street, of course. And I don't want to go down this slope of agreements and all the things, but it should be a two-way agreement where everyone's protected when they work with a designer, right? Everyone should be happy with the way the agreement looks, and they should both feel protected from that. So if the agreement, and yes, you're right, you didn't practice contract law. If the agreement wasn't something, the contract wasn't something that you relied upon your law background, what did you rely upon? Was it communication skills with clients? Because I know that's definitely a part of pretty much being
Oh, yeah.
any, right? Yeah.
It is definitely communication skills. And I mean, when we have young designers coming to us from design school, whether it's an intern or a junior designer that we hire, one of the first things I tell them is you have to understand this is a sales position. You are selling. And it's not just about selling product. We sell furniture, we sell tile, we sell whatever. You're selling yourself. You're selling your design and your concept. And that's what litigation is. You're selling your case and your arguments to a jury or a judge. You don't walk into a courtroom and just walk up and say, Mr. So-and-so, did you kill your wife? Not that I ever practiced that kind of law, but Mr. So-and-so, did you kill your wife? And he just says, well, no, of course not. And then you go sit down. Where's the sales in that?
Yeah.
You've got to walk them through slowly. And if anybody's ever served on a jury, you see, I mean, these cases take forever, and it's the nibbling here and there at the information. And
Yeah.
it's funny, I saw it in my eldest when he was growing up, my son Ian, because I thought for sure he was going to be an attorney, because whenever he wanted something, he wouldn't just come to me and say, I want this, or can I have that, or whatever it is. He would come to me and he would do that little road. He would, well, wouldn't this make sense? And don't you think it would be good if I could do this? And he would weave his way until he got to that bottom line question. There's a skill there. And I use it with clients all the time. And I don't mean that it's some kind of thing to deceive them or to lead them down some kind of path they're not already going down. But it's really about listening to your clients and understanding your clients' ultimate goals and taking them there slowly. You can't just walk into a client's home and say, well, this is all dated and this is all got to go. And I think too many clients out there think that's what we do, that we just walk in and turn our noses up at everything and say, we've got to start from scratch. But it's going in, listening to them, hearing what their concerns are. And then you don't say, God, that chair is hideous right away. That comes on the third or fourth visit when you're saying, let's consider this option. You wanted things to be more contemporary and you felt that some of your furniture was a little dated. If we go in this direction, that serves that goal, whatever the case may be. But it's not jumping to the finish line right away. It's kind of leading them through the story that you're weaving them through.
There's a finessing for sure that
Yeah.
has to happen with it all. And even though you may think, like you said, you may think like, oh dear God, why do you have that in your house? You're not going to say that right away. And you may not even say it later, but I think if you sort of just follow the vibe and the energy, right, that that client is giving you, they're going to tell you directly or indirectly whether or not they're open to receiving information like that. And if they're
Yeah.
not, you may end up probably doing the entire project where you're finessing everything. And then of course, there are those great clients where they're like, just tell me like it is. Just tell me exactly what you're thinking, right? And those are the ones that I don't know, those are more fun for me rather than having to finesse everything.
And you hope that you get to that point with your client eventually, but at least in the beginning when you're still trying to earn their trust. And
Yeah.
then that takes a little time to get there. Once you've earned your trust, then you can definitely be more blunt about it.
What other things do you do? Because we don't always just walk into a client's home and meet them for the first time. Sometimes it's at a cocktail party that someone introduces you. Sometimes it's at a real estate event. Sometimes it's on a discovery call. Other little ways that we first are introduced to a potential client. Do you have anything that you do specifically when you meet someone for the first time who could be a great fit for you in your business?
It's always about finding some common ground with your client, whether it's could be something that they're wearing that you can appreciate, that you recognize, or if it's just something that you have to do a tie so that they understand that you're just a normal human being too. And it's funny, I've got clients right now who I'm having an absolute ball working with. They are so fun. I mean, there's nothing that they'll say no to in terms of like crazy ideas. It's actually, I'm the one who's having to say no to my clients going, what if we did this? And, it's like, well, no, let's scale it back down a little bit. But, when we first started working together, the husband was a little bit more tentative about his crazy ideas because he wasn't sure that he could trust me to receive some of his ideas and to not shut him down about stuff. And we've gotten to where now we have a good rapport. And I'm like, tell me everything that you've got to tell me. And if I think you're off your rocker, just accept that I'm going to tell you. But, we also find places where we've incorporated some of his crazy thoughts. He's an engineer with a really creative side. So he's got this brain that's just always working. So you just have to find ways to kind of, like I said, build that trust where they are not intimidated by you or intimidated by the process of it and worried that they're going to be, I don't know, condescended to or looked down upon for their passe furniture that they've got in their house.
You're right. And I think a lot of the community, the consumers think that designers are design dictators, as I call it, right? They think that we're going to come in and start with a hammer and just get rid of everything and we hate it all. Then if you're a good designer, a good business person, that should never be your protocol for any sort of starting a relationship with a client. I always just say, well, you know what? I can't see it from my house. We're going to put it in your house. If that's what you want, then that's what you're going to get. We will work around it. But I like what you said about finding common ground and sort of, again, disarming them and making them realize like, yeah, this is something that I've been through before. And I always like to have another story of a past client, right? Or a past project or something relatable to what that client is doing. Like if it's a renovation project, you can go back in the recesses of your mind and think about a past client probably that you had that could relate to that. If they had kids or if they had pets or if they were doing a renovation and had to turn their kitchen and cook outside on the patio, right? During that renovation part of it. So does that something that you do bring back past stories and past situations to maybe relate it to that current client to ease them a bit, especially if you're presenting something that's like, oh my gosh, this is going to rock your world. This is going to change everything, right? Like it can be dramatic. It can be dramatic for clients to hear that and to think about the process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having gone through my own build and my own renovation now with this house, we have all those crazy stories about the refrigerator living in our living room for 3 months while the kitchen was being torn up and having to use the little shower that was in the like bathroom that hadn't been renovated. That was this dark hole while they were working on the other one. Because we gutted every bathroom in here and the kitchen and you name it. So this whole house has gotten torn up. So lots of stories.
That's me. I
And
always say, you know what? I once had a galley kitchen. It was 2 folding Costco tables in my living room. It was great. The only galley kitchen I've ever owned.
Oh yeah, we had the refrigerator and those plastic stackable like shelving units was our pantry.
Yeah, yeah, see? But again, just by humanizing what we do and taking us down off of that pedestal and just saying, "Hey, we're like you. We've gone through that." And even if someone listening is a new designer or someone starting out and they're saying that, "Oh, I don't have those stories." I guarantee you, someone in your family, some
Yeah.
friends, somebody has a story that you can relate to and bring that into conversations with clients because I love to tell client stories about those things. And I think that it really does. Again, it humanizes us. It makes it feel like, oh, this isn't something that is, totally out of the ordinary to happen. And I love that. So when you're building trust with a client and you've met them, here we go, they're excited about what ideas you've thrown out at them. How do you begin to sort of work that into your process of how you want to work with that client? Are you very rigid on your process? Do you let it ebb and flow with their client? And then I'm assuming that, of course, you have a different process for new builds and renovations versus just a decorating project.
We do. And like contracts, that's a thing that's always evolving as well. I think communication is again a huge thing. We have another project we're doing right now with it's a whole house renovation that's the entire second floor is getting redone, all the bathrooms, all the bedrooms, and there's an addition that's going to happen. And one of my frustrations has always been, and part of it is from living through my own renovation, is that the communication between the contractors and the design team and the clients. And there are all these wonderful programs out there. There was Co-Construct and now Builder's Trend and all of those that contractors use. And I worked with a lot of new construction contractors who use those programs. And I would show up on site and I had put in all these beautiful tile elevations and how things should be done. And I would show up on site and it wouldn't be done that way. And I'd say, well, did you not see the drawings that I have in Co-Construct? And they said, oh, I don't look at that. Why is it there? Why are we putting information in Co-Construct? Why am I doing all this if nobody's looking at it? So it's been a constant like struggle. It's how to keep your contractors on top of everything. And we would go through here. My husband works from home. He would laugh all the time because the trades would show up at the house and they'd be like, oh, what are we doing today? And he would look at them and go, dude, I have a job. I don't know what you're doing today. You should know what you're doing today. But it's just, there are too many people and too much loose communication, and it's just not buttoned down enough. So on this project that we're doing, I decided that I was going to try and reinvent the wheel a little bit and fix something. So we have all of our construction schedules. I do everything in Chief Architect. I've got all the elevations. I've got all the specs on all the electrical fixtures, all the specs on all the plumbing fixtures, all the elevations of your shower head and your everything. And it is all very detailed out with renderings and floor plans. And I have those saved as a PDF. I went into bit.ly.com or whatever it is to create a QR code. I went into Canva. I created cute little sheets for every room in that house upstairs that said so-and-so's bathroom, so-and-so's whatever it is. And I put that QR code there. And that QR code links to the OneDrive folder that has the PDF. So now every time I update something on my end, it's automatically updated on the QR code. And so we just had a meeting with that client right before I came back to do the podcast with you. And they were like, oh my God, the QR code is like the best thing ever. And at first it took them a little bit to like figure out that they were supposed to be scanning that thing every day. But now they're like sunk. They're like, can you do that for all the rooms downstairs? I was like, yeah. Yeah.
OMG, you just blew my mind because you beat them at their own game. Because exactly what you said is what GCs and tradespeople and contractors do. They just work off the fly on the moment in what's in
Yeah.
front of me, what's on that text message, what did you just text me over, what did you just send me? They don't ever go back and look at anything in the past. But by having a QR code there, like you just updated it and you automatically just keep that updated for them. That is genius, genius, genius.
And you
I've
can
never
separate out different QR codes for the different trades. Here's all the electrical. Here's everything the electricians need to know. Here's everything the plumbers need to know. How many times have we been on job sites where there's an old, dusty, crumpled up set of plans that's been sitting there for the last 3 months and none of the new information's on there? None of that kind of real detail work that we go into is necessarily on that set of plans that's on site. So the trades people are working off of plans that have been changed 5 times since that was left at the job site.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to steal that and give you credit for it because
I'll hook you up with it.
that is so smart. Oh my God,
But
that
yeah,
is
so I
so true.
mean, that's one of the good ways to kind of create. And I mean, that with this particular client has been great because she can also go in on the QR code. She's at the house. She can go see, has Jennifer updated where we talked about moving that shower head up a couple inches because my husband is tall? And she can look and see that I've done it. That builds that trust with them. And then the other
Yeah.
thing that I always, always, always preach to young designers about is taking the time to learn all the things that are going on in a project with all the trades so you can understand it. Go to all the trade shows. I mean, High Point's great, but I'll tell you, KBIZ, if you're in new construction and renovations, go to KBIZ. Go across to the International Builder Show. Walk the floor of the Builder Show. Get to understand what's the difference between a vinyl window and a wood window and all the different like things. I love being on a job site with a contractor and like blowing everybody away because I might understand the difference between the low voltage transformer that's going to go in there for those lights versus what the electrician's putting in with the halo fixture that costs $10 from Home Depot. So those kinds of things. I remember asking a contractor on the job one time if he could get me a set of the framing plans. And he's like, "Well, why do you need the framing plans? How am I going to know how to lay out the recessed lights in the kitchen if I don't know where the joists are running?" And he looked at me like, "Oh my God, I never had a designer ask that." So and when your client's standing there during that, the client's going, "Damn, I hired the right designer." Actually knowing what's being talked about, understanding it all. And we're always learning. I'm not sitting here saying that I know everything, but it's just always, always, always be educating yourself, whether
Yeah.
it's listening to podcasts. There are people out there right now going, "Hey, I'm going to look up the QR thing." So great, you've learned something and you can take that and better your business with it. Whether it's going to a lecture at KBIZ and it's somebody gives you some piece of knowledge that you can take, but you just always have to bring something new to the table, something that's going to set you apart from the designer down the street.
It truly is, as you say, the education that never ends, right? You're always learning
Mhm.
something every single day. And not just as a designer or a decorator or whatever label you want to call yourself. You're not just learning there, you're learning on the business side of it as well.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
I love going to these shows and not only seeing the nitty gritty because they'll like take it down to its simplest form sometimes and show you how it's actually constructed. Or if you
Yeah.
go to like
And I love
covering
that.
me too, me too, and I love seeing the machines that fabricate the stone for your countertops, right? That just gives me goosebumps to see. I just love that. And not only does it give you more validity when you're speaking with tradespeople, because well, she knows her stuff, but I just love having those little conversational moments in the back of my mind, even if it's not on that client specific project. It brings up points of conversation to have with that client if you are trying to convince them to do something because maybe you just saw a new innovative product at KBIZ and you're like, wow, this could be really, really good here. I'm going to bring this up during the consultation, even, right? And I'm going to tell them,
Yeah.
like, hey, for the trade show, I saw this. I think this would be great. We've never done it in a project before, but I would love to talk to you more about it or whatever. And I think it just opens doors too. So continuing education is, first of all, like you said, it's not something that has to be super complicated. You don't have to go back to school for it, right? You don't have to absolutely go back to college for it. You can go to a show, you can talk to people that you network with. And if you're inquisitive, people will want to tell you about their products and what they do, right? And how they've gotten to
Yeah.
where they are.
And
Yeah.
spend time in the job site with your tradespeople and get them to show you what they're doing. Understand that the people who are installing your tile know more than you do. So understand why they're doing certain things a certain way. And it's just those little things. Always be curious and be open to learning something else.
Always, 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 always. And sometimes the tradesperson might need to be pushed a little bit. And if you have some information that they don't even know about, it might even help them to learn something. Like when I was renovating my own home, I did a lot of things that we've never done for clients before because I tend to use my own homes for like testing grounds and experimental prototypes for what I want to do to a client's home. And
Yeah.
so we were doing a lot of stuff that we've never done before. And I was like, listen, I know this is going to take you another couple of hours to figure this out, but just figure it out now. And then for the next client who pays me to do this, you can do it in half the time. But by
Yeah.
doing that and you kind of using myself as the guinea pig, if you will. So how long did your house that you're in now, when did you renovate that last?
We finished about a year ago.
A
It
year
took
ago.
us about a year and a half, almost 2 years through COVID because of supply chain stuff. But we've been done for about a year.
Okay. And did you do anything like that in your own home as well, where you're like, "Oh, I really want to try this out," or "Oh, I really want to do this,"
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe
Oh, yeah. We've got in the primary bath, I did the bump out in the shower with the LED light coming down the side in the shower and just having to sit there and think through it with my tile guy, with my GC. Well, how is that going to work? What's the flange? What's the depth of that? And how to build that out so that you had a full size tile on the front, but you still had the channel on the back and all those little details. And at the time, the lighting company that we were using for tape lighting wasn't doing a waterproof version. So we had to do a bunch of research and find one that was a waterproof version. And now they've actually come around since then and they're doing now the waterproof. But so now I've got that kind of little trick up my sleeve when I'm doing bathroom remodels and doing all the different cool lighting that they're doing.
isn't
So
that fun? Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
And I tell even young designers who are just, and by young, I mean young in their business, just starting out. And even if you don't have a client, you can still design things like this if you are creating this bathroom with LED lighting, but maybe it's not actually being made, but you can still research the products. You can still do the CAD drawings. You can still do all the things that will lead you to that point. Or if you're just doing decor, you can definitely choose products for a room. And my point is, nothing should hold anyone back from continuing their education from wherever they are in their business, whether it's
yeah.
brand new or whether it's 10 or 20 years into their business. There are multiple ways to continue to educate yourself and practice
Mhm.
and hone your craft, right?
It's so nice. I mean, having been through 24 years of doing this, things have changed a lot in our community too. I mean, the networks that we've developed, we have so many designers out there who are willing to share their ideas and their mentorship. And it's just so nice because in the early days, designers were still kind of a very tight fisted, very closed minded. We're not going to share anything and felt like everybody was competition. And I remember some interactions with some designers that were not as friendly. But now it seems like we've really turned the corner, which is so great because my best friends are designers from across the country. And if I've got a problem, I shoot somebody a text and say, this is what's going on. What do you guys think? And we're all there for each other. My biggest piece of advice is find people that you get along with, that you respect, that have some knowledge, or even it doesn't have to be somebody so senior to you. It's people that you can open up to and share concerns or issues with along the way and find some creative solutions that you might not have thought of.
Very true. And not only at these trade shows like High Point and KBIS and Las Vegas Market and all the places do you see product, but you also see your fellow designers. And that's where you can actually start and develop those relationships. A pet peeve that I have is that I think that people get so locked behind their screens and they are or their phone or Instagram or whatever the thing that they do, and they don't ever leave it. Like they're always on their phone or they're always looking for a way to grow or learn or market their business from their comfort of their office or their living room sofa, right? And I think that that
Yeah,
is a downfall because I personally don't think that anything replaces in-person conversations with another human being, right? Nothing to me replaces
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
One of my big passions is finding opportunities for us to get together. And you and I have talked about putting together the trip that we were talking about to Portugal
Mhm.
and Morocco, which actually my husband talked me into a very last minute trip. In 3 weeks, we leave for Portugal and we just booked it this past weekend.
Ah,
But yeah,
shame on you.
so excited. But yeah, I mean, I love traveling with my design friends and my design buddies who we we spend time together. We get inspiration from wherever we're at. We all those late night meals that we share and drinks that we have, we're sharing stories and learning from each other. And I mean, to me, that kind of time is just invaluable, just as worth every minute or every dollar I spend going to Vegas or High Point or wherever it would be.
100%. And
Yeah.
I'm not poo-pooing social media 100% altogether. I'm just saying that having those in-person relationships will build the social media relationships that you have. Or if you know someone and you're listening, you're like, oh, I've only talked to this person on social media. ask them where they're going to be. Ask them if they're going to be at a show or a trade show or any sort of event. And then go there and nurture that relationship, because I
Yeah.
just find, like you said, it's nice to have that network of people that you can reach out to, whether it's commiserating or whether it's celebrating. It's nice to have like-minded people who understand, right? Like if I talk to my husband, he'll understand certain parts about if I'm complaining about something, but not fully. But if I were to call
Yeah.
you and say, "Oh my God, this is da, 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 da," you'd be like, "Well, yeah, girl, I know. I just had that happen too." So it's just nice to have someone on the battlefield with you, I think, when you're needing
Exactly.
that push to keep going forward. Do you, when you're speaking with clients in the early stages, are there anything that you look for in that conversation to say, "Oh my gosh, this is a perfect client for me. This is that client that, oh yes, this is exactly the person that I know I can work with and make a successful project"? Are there any telltale signs there that you see right at the beginning of the dialogue of working with them that maybe will give you a hint that they're going to be your ideal client?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of who some of my ideal clients have been. It's so funny because sometimes it's a complete surprise. I've got a client who has turned into one of my favorite clients. We've done a couple houses for her now, but when she first came to us, this was years ago, she was trying to build a house and she told us that she wanted a pretty traditional house. She wanted a turret on the front, and the word turret kind of threw me. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's
And yeah. And she had very European, she was showing me pictures of her furniture, and it was very French provincial, very formal. And it was not really my feel, but I was like, okay, well, maybe. So we started kind of working with her and with the architect. And the builder and the architect combo that she had picked was just not getting it. And after like a year of trying to get plans together, they just weren't speaking the same language as her. And her realtor came to her and said, I found a house that I think you would like. And it was on a lake and it was a beautiful piece of property. And she bought it. Now, it was nothing like what she had described. There were no turrets involved. And she called me and said, I bought this house and I think it's going to require to start from scratch, everything new, because none of that formality was going to fit this house. I'll tell you, we have had so much fun with them and her family, and she just loves color. She loves pattern and embraced all this like crazy fun stuff. But it's definitely, if you look at my portfolio, I'm definitely not afraid of color. But we have had so much fun. So my biggest takeaway is don't judge a client when you first meet him, because you really never know. This is not a client I ever would have thought was going to turn out to be, so great for us and such a good friend too.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
really, really great advice, because you're right. And if you're new, you don't even know who your ideal client is. And so you have to experiment and get out there and try these clients out to find out who is jiving with the way that you're running your business.
We do all the questionnaires and all that stuff of trying to kind of filter out who the best client's going to be. And let's face it, the stuff that these people put on their questionnaires, that's not really telling you anything. We start the process with a complimentary meet and greet that we do in our studio. So they're able to come in and meet the whole team and see kind of our resources and everything. And it's during that face-to-face conversation that you get a real feel for whether or not you're going to vibe with them. Can you have a banter going with them? Can you relax a little bit with them and joke with them a little bit? And how do they receive that? And there certainly are probably things that they say if they start talking about how they want to build this 5,000 square foot house and they want to do it for $400,000. That's not your client. But there are just little cues along the way. And I'd say, I don't think this is news to anybody, but it's those clients who fill out the questionnaire when they say, have you worked with a designer before? And they say, yes, I've worked with 4 of them. Then maybe you don't want to be number 5.
If it's 2 partners or 2 spouses, I like to see how they interact with one another as
Yes.
well, because that to me
Huge.
is a sign of how they're going to interact when the project is moving on down the line, and with me as
Oh,
and my team
yes.
as well, right? That's an important one.
Very much. I had a client who, was just so rude to his wife. And
Same.
I fired him because of it. I was like, I can't, again, life is too short to deal with assholes.
Yes. Yeah, oh, you can say asshole, that's fine. And I agree. I agree, and
Yeah.
I've done the same. I'm like, this is not gonna work out. I'm sorry. This is not something that we want to be a part of.
If you're just doing a decorating project and you can get in and out fairly quickly, maybe that's less of an issue. But if you're doing a new build project or a big renovation, you get to know these clients and their families intimately. You are all up in their space and you're in a relationship with them for 1 to 2 years on a lot of these projects. So it's got to be somebody that you can, let your hair down and have that kind of comfort with and the banter and the relationship with, that where they become good friends and like family.
Agreed. And I think something that you said there that I think most people should pick up on is, even if you start working with a client and they put up this facade of being someone different, and then you see something else along the line that's not correcting itself, it's okay to have a exit clause in your contract where you can get out of
Yeah.
that and move on, right? Life is too
Yep.
short to work with people that you don't want to work with. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. There should always be an exit strategy to terminate a contract with a client, no matter what the reasoning is behind the way that you want to do that. So I've seen how you market yourself, and I've seen you work with different brands in different arenas and at trade shows, as we were saying, KBIS and whatnot. I think that's something that a lot of designers either don't know how to do, or don't know where to start, or don't know how to get those brand collaborations going. And it could lead to something bigger and better down the road. Because I've seen it happen with myself and other designers too, where you just plant that seed of working with someone on whatever level, and then it turns into something bigger. So talk to me about how you, first of all, wanted to have these brand collaborations and what they are, and then how that has maybe helped your career and your exposure for your company.
It kind of goes back to that networking piece and the trade show piece. I was lucky enough last year at KBIS, I was asked by Roll to design a vignette for their showroom, which was great. They selected 5 designers to do it, other designers that I respect highly. So I was honored to be asked. And that really came about because, you know what? This all goes back to Sherry Qualls. I will have to give Sherry the thanks for it all. I got invited to a Thompson Traders dinner in High Point. And I don't know if you're familiar with Thompson Traders, how they do at High Point. They will do in October, they'll do a Dias de los Muertos party and they have it at their house in Greensboro. And it is the most fabulous party I have ever been to. I mean, this family, they go all out. They cook, they serve you personally. The place is decorated like you would not believe. They have performers. It is amazing. But I sat at the dinner table that evening with Sherry Qualls, who is with White Good Agency and does a lot of the PR and everything for a lot of very big brands in the kitchen and bath realm. And she and I sat at the table and got to know each other. And it was a random thing. And she said, you know what? I need a speaker for KBIS. So I said, okay, sign me up. All of a sudden, I'm a speaker at KBIS. She is connected to and very good friends with Veronica at Design Hounds. I ended up into Design Hounds, ended up on a blog tour with Veronica's whole crew, and some of my best friends now who I refer to, Sarah and Jana, came from that blog tour. All of those connections. And then being involved in that whole Design Hounds group, I got invited to Napa for the Signature Kitchen Suites event. So through all of those things, you're getting to know and getting to meet people. And then through those connections, I was asked to be a judge for KBIS, for the Best of KBIS Awards. So I did that, and Roll had a product they had entered for Best of KBIS. And the marketing director for Roll at the time was researching who the judges were going to be and came across my portfolio, and she said, I want her to do our showroom. So you just never know. You're sitting at dinner one night at a party in High Point, and down the line, things just happen. So you've got to be there to make those connections. If you're sitting home thinking, I can't afford to go to High Point this year, you never know what kind of opportunities you're missing out on, because those kind of little moments don't happen when you're sitting on the sofa watching how everybody else is networking at High Point without you.
Yeah. Be in the room where it happens, as they say on Hamilton, right? I have never been to any event any sort of gathering of designers or brands or anything in our industry that has not led to something else. I've never, ever, ever, whether it was small or big or whatever, I've never, ever, ever done anything again outside from get away from your desk, get outside of your office. I've never done that where it's not turned into something else. And you are a living testimony to that, that you just did something that was easy, relatively, right? You just went to a party and then
Mhm.
that turned into one thing, into the other, and eventually led to bigger things. And I predict that it will even lead to more, because I'll tell you something funny. I was at Las Vegas Market recently, and I was the presenter for the Andes Awards, and Roll was there, and she was speaking with me, and I mentioned your name. I said, "Yeah, my friend Jennifer, she did the vignette," and she's, "Oh my God, yeah!" And so, do you see how even that starts to intermingle with other
Yeah.
things, right? So your name came up just because I know you and you did that, and then she knew you, and so it was just this great sort of synergy that happened so easily. But it's not going to happen if you don't get out there and put yourself out in front of people and be yourself. And that's the other thing too, I think, is you are just being you when you're doing this. You're not trying to be another designer that you see on Instagram. You're not trying to do anything else. And I think if we just all be ourselves, that is what a brand or a possible collaboration or anything, they will see that in you, because they're looking for something that they don't have at the moment. They're looking for something different. They're looking for a different angle on what they're already doing. And if that's what you have, just by being yourself, how easy is that, right? It's so
Yeah.
easy, so
Yeah.
good.
I'm here now talking to you because of an event that I attended. You and
Yes,
I met each other at Luann's event last
yes,
year. And because of that, now I'm sitting on a podcast with you. Hey, we might go to Morocco together. You meet so many interesting people at all of these different events. And it's just such a golden opportunity that too many people just don't take advantage of. So,
it is. And I think
yeah.
that not only does it enrich you as a designer, but subconsciously, clients also love to know that you have a certain level of success, that you have achieved certain things. And you don't have to go, swinging a flag and saying, "This is what I've done." But just by being associated with another brand, they're going to promote that part of you and that part of things that you've done with them. Clients will find that, they will see that, they will know that you have had these achievements. I had a client once, and she was like telling her, we did the consultation, and she told her husband, "Oh yeah, John is the number one interior designer in the country." And I was like, "Wait, what? Where did you read?" I've never once said that, and I'm pretty sure nobody else has ever said that. But if that's what you got from whatever publicity you saw from me, then good for you. And I was like, "I don't know about the country, but I'm good." But the point is, clients pay attention to successful people, and that's who they want to work with. Especially if you're designing their $5 or $6 million home, they're going to want to know that you're capable of doing that. And by having all of this outreach that you're speaking of, it just adds to the validity, and it just makes you more of an expert in the industry, I think. And I love that you do that. And I wish more designers, again, would just look for those little ways to do it. It does not have to be complicated. Like you said, you just simply started by being yourself at a dinner party, or being yourself at a convention that we met at, or whatever. And those things do lead to lots of other opportunities. Do you find that your clients, do they ever let you know that they're happy with that you've achieved certain things, or that you have this
Oh,
stage
yeah.
career, that you've done certain things?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always shocked. You're like, yeah, I saw you on such and such. And I think it's something that's just happening within our industry, but they pay attention. And when I post something that I'm doing in the industry on my Instagram, I'm thinking it's just my design crowd who's paying attention to it, but it's the clients out there. It's whether it's your existing clients or perhaps your future clients. But
Mhm.
yeah, I get all kinds of comments and stuff from my clients who are like, "Oh yeah, I saw you were in Chicago at such and such showroom, or I saw you were at this event."
They're looking at us, and they're seeing what we're doing, and they're paying attention to how we are elevating ourselves with our careers and what we're doing to learn. And I don't think that you have to reveal all aspects of your life on social media. I'm not saying that, but if it's something that's going to help your business and help you to show that you are an expert, or that you are continuing to learn, or that you are continuing to partner with the brands that you love, then clients will notice it, and it will make a difference. So I think that
Yep.
that's a good lesson to be learned.
It goes to building that trust. Again, like we said, it's all about building the trust. So if they see that you care enough and that you're passionate enough about it to go out of your way and attend these things and to always be educating yourself, that gives them another good source of trust that they've hired the right person.
On that note, something that you do that's very interesting is, after your project has ended, that it was successfully completed, a new build was done, or a renovation, or decorating, whatever. you like to continue that relationship with your clients. So
Yeah.
tell me about this concierge service that you offer to your clients.
We have started a concierge service, and the whole point of it is, and again, you build relationships with your clients that last sometimes years. And we have clients who have become, we have an older couple that I just love, and you just never know. They hired us to do a little bit of a decorating project for their home in Williamsburg. And then they called me 6 months later and said, "We're going to go house hunting in a very prestigious neighborhood of Richmond, and we'd like for you to come house hunting with us because we want to find a fixer-upper and gut it and do it from scratch." Those people are like our grandparents now. I mean, we get Christmas presents every year, we see them all the time. And so creating those kind of relationships, that's the goal. You want to plant the seeds that you are always at the forefront of their mind. So we've started a concierge service that says, "Hey, a year from now, we've finished your project, but all of a sudden the holidays are coming. You know you're going to have a house full of people. Maybe you ought to freshen up all those beds, the guest beds, your children's bedrooms where you're going to kick your children out so Aunt so and so can stay there. Maybe I need to freshen up all those sheets. Call me. I'll connect you with all new sheets for everything. And I'm not going to charge you any kind of design time for selling you sheets. We have, certain vendors we go through. It's a very quick turnaround. Here are some great options. Boom, they order it. I've made a little money on the sheets, but more importantly, I've stayed in the forefront of their mind. And 6 months later, when their best friend from the tennis club talks about building a house, I'm in their head and they know to say, "You need to work with Jennifer." So beyond sheets is the first example that comes to my head. We're actually getting ready to send out some for a client. But, we'll do event planning. We had a client whose daughter got married. Her son got married a couple of years ago. We helped with that one too. But her daughter just got married this past Saturday, and she knew she was going to have a bunch of people at the house for different entertaining during that whole process. So we came in and we did a lot of last minute zhuzhing for that. Yes, we were on the clock for some of that, but there were some extra things. There was some planting big planters with flowers and just the little details. And do you need new tableware? Do you need new lovely napkins? All of those things that are just the finishing touches sometimes, especially from the entertaining side, are the things that clients may not always think of you for unless you tell them you can do it. Keeping kind of a little thread connected to them.
And it's keeping you top of mind in their
Yeah.
minds, right? They know that they can call Jennifer to do this because Jennifer and her team did a great job on my home, on the renovation or the redesign. And like, of course, I trust their taste. Back to that trust, right? They trust you to give them a look that they need and they want to impress people or to entertain people or whatever they're doing. But I think it just builds, like you said, it's almost like you're building the layer cake, right? And then you start with that first layer and you keep adding more onto it. And before you know it, you have this big, beautiful cake and it's all built upon trust. And whether you charge for that or not, the moral of the story is the client would still appreciate it because they have that trust and they know that you're going to give them a beautiful outcome because they have seen you do it before in
Yeah.
larger ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to that.
And some aspects of that we do charge design time for. I mean,
Sure.
we don't, but if it's something like I can help you with just purchasing some, like I said, new glassware,
Yeah.
that doesn't take that much time. We have our sources here, boom, boom, boom. This is what I think you should get. That's an easy thing. If we're helping you plan a dinner party, I don't know about you, but I love planning dinner parties and doing an actual printed menu and doing all the stuff that goes along with it. If we can help you do that for all of your friends, guess who all your friends are going to be thinking about when they want to do something? Because, we've created this beautiful atmosphere. Are we charging our time for that? Yeah. But, again, it's just letting your clients know that you can help, beyond the time when you've finished that, whatever the master bathroom remodel.
Well, I
Just,
think whether you charge or whether you don't charge, the point is they know who to call. They know who to
yeah,
call to do a great job for them. That alone is worth the price of admission for me, for if I were that client, because that alone, to know that I don't have to go on Yelp or whatever, wherever you look for people these
yeah.
days, those type of things, right? That you can find someone that you can agree with and trust who's going to give you that. And I would think at that point, they probably just give you carte blanche to do whatever you want, right? Most of them, because at that point, you've already earned that trust and they know that you can deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know their style, we know their taste, their likes and needs.
And I love it. And you're making money off of the product and you're still getting that fix that you like to do with entertaining. Even if you're not having a dinner party, you can create one for someone else. That's so great. And the marketing piece of it is chef's kiss genius because like you said, they are going to have more people in their homes and your name's going to be top of mind there. So that's so good. Oh my gosh. I know there were so many good tidbits in this conversation today. QR code alone, there were so many good tidbits in this conversation, but the QR code was very eye-opening. Before we wrap up, tell everybody where they can find out more about you, other than the trade show that we're probably going to see each other at some point, and they can find you there probably, but where can they find you online behind their screens?
So if you see me wandering the floors of High Point or in Vegas, say hello. But otherwise, online, you can find me. My website is jenniferstonerinteriors.com. But I'm also on Facebook and also on Instagram, which is both of those are just Jennifer Stoner Interiors.
And we'll put all of those in the show notes. I love your design aesthetic. I love your openness and honesty to talk about things. And I just love having you as a friend. So thank you for being on the podcast today.
Yes, we need to do it in person though, so we can have a drink together. So sometime soon.
We do tend to drink fall. I won't be there, but I'll figure out a way to have a cocktail with you. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys know I don't normally do a recap of an episode because I just feel like there's so much in there that you probably heard already, but how action-packed was this episode? Jennifer, I adore her anyway, but oh my gosh, she literally spilled the tea on everything. So many learning lessons inside of this episode. I love the way that she started her business, how she pivoted and found similarities in interior design. And as a 24-year veteran in the industry, you would have to close your ears to not learn something from someone with such experience and knowledge. And I just value so much that she said, from the QR code to how she establishes trust with clients to this amazing concierge service that she offers, which is a great service not only for her client, but for her business and marketing. This is an episode that you are going to want to listen to again. And I just, again, cannot thank Jennifer enough for sharing all of this information today in such an open and honest way. And if you ever meet Jennifer in person, you're going to find that she is exactly the way she is on this interview, just open, honest, caring, and ready to help you with your career just as she has had success with her own. So listen to this again if you need to. Go into the show notes. I have all of her information in there. And Jennifer, start pouring my cocktail because I will be sharing one with you soon. And all of you who are here today, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, as I always say, to make big changes on the outside, sometimes you have to look at the designer within. I'll see you next time, friends. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the Designer Within podcast. It means the world to me. If you're ready to dive deeper into the topics that we've discussed here, be sure to check out my online coaching and courses program, designsuccessacademy.com. Here I will teach you everything you need to know to run your interior design business from starting the project all the way to the end, including marketing and pricing your services for profit. And for more information on this podcast, including how to be a guest or my design services in general, go to johnmcclain.co. That's johnmcclain.co. See you soon, friend.